Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. It's time for another GoBots review, and we're taking a look at something of an exclusive Guardian GoBot. This is Scratch. Scratch was released in 1986, and he would be among some of the final GoBots to be released. He's an exclusive character due to the fact that he was only released here in the United States. So many of the other countries of the world would miss out on this character. And in some ways that's a shame. It's a rather interesting toy, to say the least. Of course, he made numerous appearances on the show, but it's hard to credit those with much due to the fact that Tonka really didn't give Hanna-Barbera much to work with in terms of how to characterize these figures. So they were more or less left to their own devices. Hence why we don't talk about the show very often. Of course, taking a look at Scratch here, stands just broad enough to look like he is physically imposing of a character. And for articulation-wise, he's got it pretty good here. The arm can move here at the shoulders, so he can move his arm in and out a bit on the ball joint. And to some degree, yep, it does rotate all the way around. He can be twisted at the hips. He can spread his legs fully apart like so to do full splits. And he can bend at the knees. Not the correct way, but he can at least bend at the knees. So, quite a fair amount of articulation in a small-sized GoBot like he is. Now, to convert him into his alternate mode, it's a very simple task. Of course, most of them were. To do so, we start by popping his headpiece out and rotating, like so. The arms we straighten out, and then fold them up, like so. We turn him around here at the hips. We'll have him do a splits so that we can bend him at the knees like so. Rotate them around like so. And then fold them up and into the back. And then that puts him into his alternate mode. He's a pickup truck with a special cab over the bed of the truck. He's made to resemble a mid-80s Ford Bronco. And of course, while he doesn't have any distinguishing marks, like as you can see, there's no oval in the front, he does look pretty good in his truck mode. The only real gripe to have in this mode is the silver paint on all the windows and, of course, the sunroof. As you can see here on some of the examples of mine, the paint does damage relatively easily, which was a common problem with silver paint on many 80s toys. G.I. Joe especially has a fair number of figures in the Cobra faction that used silver paint for the insignia on their chests. And finding one that has that silver paint in perfect condition nearly 40 years later, that's a challenge and a half, to say the least. Because in most cases, the symbol is totally gone or so thoroughly destroyed it is unrecognizable as such. As you can see here on Scratch, he's had a few scuffs, but otherwise, paint on here is in fairly decent shape. Of course, if there's an angle that's terrible to look at him at, it's the back, since you can clearly see there's no tailgate. You can easily see the joints for the legs. But that's in reality, that's a minor gripe. That's really a minor gripe, and it's kind of, well, if you don't like that view, put him in a different angle. And of course, while he still had metal to hold on to those, well, of course, here, point out in the bottom, we even got, you can see the parts of the drive assembly underneath him. That's some pretty nice detail. Because on most of the GoBot toys and whatnot, some of them were famous. This would be where the robot is. To actually see parts of the drive assembly, that's some nice detail. Of course, unfortunately, he was made late enough in the line that Tonka would be cutting the costs a bit to save the line, so he has plastic wheels instead of rubber, like many of his compatriots. So how does he drive on these plastic wheels? Oh, very good, very good. Now, if only the toy had some shocks and struts in there, we could probably do some real off-roading. Now we get down to my thoughts. What do I think of Scratch? Scratch is one that I've always enjoyed throughout my childhood. This, of course, isn't the one I had as a child. My brother had him as a child. I bought this one as an adult collector. But I always found the toy very interesting. It definitely had enough look to it to look like a robot. And it turned into a pretty decent looking vehicle mode, to say the least. Just a lot of things about this toy just spoke to me in volumes that I really can't fully comprehend even 30 years later. But all in all, I still think it's a great toy even now as an adult collector. It's hard to say what kind of a role Scratch played with the Guardians, but I would venture that he was probably some sort of a scout character. And I'm basing this based on the early Transformers, as one of the earliest Autobot scouts, Hound, was an army jeep, which was built for off-road driving, so a heavy-duty pickup truck like the Ford Bronco would likely be able to handle some of that. So I'm willing to go along with that. Or if we wanted to go further, we could claim he's more like Trailbreaker and be a defense specialist, since the alternate mode between the Toyota Hilux and Scratch's Ford Bronco are very similar in appearance. But I'd say let your imagination carry you away, especially if you can fantasize yourself going on some wild adventures with a truck that becomes a robot. So all in all, I'm going to go with the top tier on this one, folks. Because there's just something about it that screams true science fiction giant robot. And I just like it. At any rate, that concludes my review of the Guardian GoBot toy Scratch. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please again leave me a thumbs up here on YouTube. New to my channel, please hit the subscribe button down below and join our ranks. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you'll know when I post new content. Also, please share your thoughts about Scratch in the comments down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.